3, 2, 1.
Here we go! Happy Freight Friday. Today we have the smartest man in freight. I'm excited to introduce you guys to him. Be ready for some new content. Get your beer. What's everybody drinking? Put it in the comments. Or just put your favorite beer in the comments if you don't want your boss to know that you're drinking under the desk. We all know you are. We have Grace in the house. Todd, John, Jeffrey, Eric. It's so excited to see everybody. We have a big crowd today. Everyone's come out to see the smartest man in freight, Ben Gordon. This episode is made possible by our amazing sponsors, OTF Capital. OTR Capital. Oh my God. Grace is going to kill me. Sorry, OTR Capital. Don't forget that brokers and carriers both can use them as a factoring company. They have great technology. They should have been on this map. We'll get them on the map that we're going to talk about today. And also we have Lean Solutions Group. Y'all know I love Lean. They run everything in my life, including the marketing, the backgrounds, the graphics, my website. If you guys haven't seen my website, it's beautiful, mattgainslive.com. And thank you, Lean, for making today's episode possible. So I'm going to introduce y'all to Ben. We have a new time today to accommodate Ben's schedule. And I want you guys to tell me what you think about this later time. Normally we start at 2. Today we're starting at 3 Central Time. And I see Tim Poole is here. Hi, Tim. And we have Jason, JZ, I miss you very much. So it's time for us to get a beer. All right, Ben, you're first. You're up. You're in the hot seat. And then I'm sure people are going to have lots of questions for you. And then if it goes crazy, we will bring you back on for another episode. But first of all, could you tell us about your company and what you do on a day-to-day basis for those few people who have never heard of you?
Well, Cassandra, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on the show with you. I have to say, you won't believe how many people gave me shit for this session. So I would just clarify. Please tell your viewers, I did not name myself this title. You chose it. So thank you very much.
I didn't tell you. Didn't ask permission. I just slapped it up there. And then I hope it's going to be thrown in your face for like the next, year or so. Every 2 seconds, somebody's going to be like, aren't you the smartest man in freight?
Well, many people have already thrown this in my face, so thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I'm not the smartest man in freight, but Socrates was asked why he was the smartest man in Athens. And he said, I'm not the smartest man in Athens, but maybe because I know I'm not, maybe that gives me an advantage over other people that think they know more. So I do know I'm not the smartest man in freight, and maybe that's a form of knowledge too. But thank you for having me. I'm Ben Gordon. I'm the founder and managing partner of Cambridge Capital and BGSA. Cambridge Capital invests in companies in transportation, logistics, and technology. And I've spent my life in this industry, for better and for worse. I grew up in the industry. My grandfather had a truck leasing company that he ultimately sold to Penske. I started my first company 22 years ago as a SaaS logistics company. Had the opportunity to build that company, 3 others, and 22 years later, here I am. So we invest in great companies, ranging from traditional logistics like XPO in the beginning, software companies like Brinng, are the latest unicorn, at least for us, in logistics technology, and a variety of others. So hopefully we'll have an opportunity to support some more great companies that you and I both know.
I'm excited to hear about some of these new companies. And I've been excited for this episode for a while because I think that people are really hungry to hear about what's going on in the industry, especially from someone who's been in the industry and gets it. You're not coming out from Wall Street and just sidelining our business. First of all, Vitaly, I knew you were going to say something about Ben's background and Ben's couch. And I purposely did a green screen so that I wouldn't be made fun of like they've made fun of me in the rest of the shows. Just a little sidetrack. Sorry. let's start. Hold on one second. Let's start with this map, okay? And you guys, at least the ones on YouTube, you'll see I put a link in the comments for the map. And I think there are other people in the comments who will also just give you the link so you can see this. It's called the LogiTech Map 2021. And whenever Zeke has a chance, he'll show it to you guys on the screen too. Thank you. Very energetic map. And I see that Ben's name's up there, his company's name's up there, and we got some other ones that look like they've supported this. Ben, tell me about this. I saw you promoting it on LinkedIn. You seemed pretty excited about it. What the hell is this cluster of logos, and why should we like it? Besides the fact that we're all like, where's my company logo?
Well, the basic idea was there are lots of people in this world of logistics and supply chain technology. And one of the things that I noticed, you've probably noticed it, and lots of other people in the space have, it's hard to make sense of everything that's going on. So wouldn't it be cool if there was one map, one grand unifying theory that showed everything happening in logistics technology? So a few of us got together and said, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And we all had our pictures and what we thought, and it's funny, whenever you draw the map, you always put yourself in the middle. It's interesting, if you travel around other countries, you'll see that as well. I have a client in Kuwait, Agility Logistics, and you see the maps there. Kuwait's right in the middle, and then you look at an American map, we're in the middle. So we all.
Oh my God. Have you ever seen a map, like a real one, compared to the ones they show you when you were growing up in school? And like the United States is huge on the map, and then they show us like, here's the real map of the world, and the United States is really not that big.
Exactly.
Sidetrack, sorry.
It's like the old New Yorker map of the world, which.
Oh my God, such a good map. Oh man, if anybody has never seen that, just Google New Yorker's map of the country. It's the funniest thing in the world. So Rhonda told me to focus.
Yeah. All right. So focus. We thought we would do that for logistics. And so we started thinking, all right, what are the different categories? And you've got warehousing technology and freight brokerage technology and procurement and tracking and e-commerce fulfillment. And then we thought, you know what? Instead of thinking that we have the answers, let's open it up to the market. Let's crowdsource it. So we created a site. It's hosted at Alcott Global, and it provides the opportunity for anybody to take 2 minutes, fill in your information, and you're on the map. Now, there's a vetting process after that. So still a couple of other steps, but really every company that's on that page was submitted by somebody else. So I didn't write it. Radu, Brian, Eric, none of those guys wrote it, but we collectively took all the submissions and said, okay, let's try to figure out how to organize this. Now, I'm sure we don't have it right. Version 1.0 was a couple of weeks ago. 2.0 just came out. We'll do a 3.0 and a 4.0. But really, the whole point is create a way to organize all the information about logistics technology. So it's imperfect and flawed, and I'm sure lots of people will point out why they're not on it. And the answer is, if you're not on it, go fill out the form and you'll be there next week.
Okay, so everybody listen to him. After the show, we'll put in the link where you can put in whatever company you want to vote for, because there are a lot of companies that are not on here. But tell me, first of all, are we just slapping every tech company on here? Is there some vetting? Does it need to be new tech? Can it be like, what's going on?
So a couple of things. First of all, you're supposed to be above a size threshold, 5 million plus revenue, 10 plus people, although this is self-reported data. So, and we're doing this as volunteers as a service for the market. So I'm not making money on it or paying anybody, nor is anybody else to do it. So, but as volunteers, we're doing our best. But the idea was, okay, what are the key categories? And what we put here were 13 categories for starters. I'm sure you could add more. The thought was, what are the big buckets? TMS is a big bucket because TMS is really like the central nervous system for transportation. It's where I got started. Started my first company 22 years ago, Threeplex. Planning and procurement. Procurement also a way of managing freight spend, a huge category. Cargo visibility, tracking, where's my stuff? Warehousing software, freight brokerage software, digital intermediaries that are acting as like digital freight brokers, since they're equivalent on the forwarding side, people handling global trade management. So the idea was come up with the categories where there's a lot of activity, a lot of value creation, and a lot of companies innovating, and then invite people to provide their categories and plug in. So that's the idea.
So, okay, I like the idea. I like where you're heading with this. And normally, if it was Joe Schmo putting out something like this, I'd be like, whatever. You got a lot of free time. But it's you, and you're the smartest man in freights. And you got a whole bunch of smart people also looking at all this. And y'all have the money in our industry and the voices and a lot of followers. So it's a big impact. So it was interesting when I saw this because I was like, there are some companies on here, and I'm not going to roast people, although it's so tempting. Oh, it's so tempting. I'm not going to roast anybody. Thank you, Zeke. But there are some companies on here, and I'm like, you're just a broker. And you just have your, like, I think they lied to you, Ben. I think they did a little markety twisty and snowed you. How do you keep from being discredited because you have companies on here that they're not tech companies?
Well, look, a couple of things. First of all, this is version 2.0, not 10.0. So we got time. We can improve it. And there's if you have feedback, by all means, there's a link that I posted on LinkedIn and Twitter where I can just tell you on the show, but send your feedback and folks will look at it. The second thing is, the primary goal is pure play software companies. But if you take somebody like, and I'll highlight someone that's not on this page that probably should be, and he's made that point to me. So Doug Wagner, if you're listening, I agree. Excellent software probably should be on this page. But you go, all right, is Echo a software company or is it a services company? Well, Echo goes to a brokerage company. So you'd argue that that's really where they belong. On the other hand,
wait, where they belong? Sorry.
Well, they're not on the page right now, but they're a truck brokerage company. But you could argue they've got a TMS because they use it to power their business. They have
digital intermediaries, don't you?
That's right. They could be a digital intermediary. You could argue, and I know Doug would argue, that his transportation technology is equal to or better than some of the digital intermediaries. He'd probably argue better than all the digital intermediaries. But you know what? If you compare an Uber Freight with an Echo head to head, it'd be a pretty interesting conversation, right? I mean, fundamentally, as Doug would say, they're doing something similar. Doug would say his technology is better. Uber Freight, no doubt, we would say the opposite. But it's a fair debate. So, so yes, Vitaly.
You have a traditional truckload brokerage on here. What do we got? Arrive on here too. So then I was like, well, what about all the other brokerages? So it's interesting. And here's the thing. Yeah, I'm picking the shit out of your map. Okay. You're like, oh my God, girl, we just flipped this thing together and we're trying to get something going. But at the same time, I'm also picking this apart because it's a good discussion to have. And it's a hot point right now in our industry because I'm worried you guys, all these little logos up here and these smart people who went to these fancy, fancy schools. Y'all are, your voices carry in our industry. So I often wonder, like, is this what they think? Is this them? So it was helpful to hear you that you did like crowdsourcing or crowd, what did you call it? Open source.
Yeah, open source. That's right.
Yes. So it's interesting. I am excited to see where this goes from here. It'd be so interesting to see where this goes from here. But y'all heard him. He's trying to do something good. So get on. If you're like me and you're like, where the hell is this company? What's this company? And like, where's Transplace? I mean, they were just bought. Where's JB Hunt? Oh, I bet JB Hunt's pissed. So
you got to submit their info. By the way,
you guys get your mamas to submit a link for you.
Your marketing team can take 2 minutes and submit it. So go for it.
I like it. Okay.
But I want to
have.
add something else. This is designed to provoke conversation. It's not designed to be the final perfect answer to the world of supply chain. I do have.
And are you telling us to come out like, here are all the good companies that you should invest in? Go.
No. I'm saying the purpose is to lay out what are the different categories where innovation exists, to begin a conversation around those companies and categories, to invite everybody in the industry to submit their info, and ultimately to create over time a complete picture. This is not a complete picture, but it's a draft. It's a work in progress. I can share with you, by the way, now or later if you want, what I showed at our own annual conference earlier this year in terms of our map of the market. And we can come back to that later if you want.
Yeah, let's before we do that, I definitely want to turn to Vitaly, one of my very good friends. He says, sorry, back up. In layman's terms, concisely, what's the purpose of the map? When we see it, what do you want us to derive from it?
I want you to derive where are the areas of innovation across all areas of logistics technology, and who are some of the companies pursuing innovation in those categories. I also want you to react and respond with who you think is missing, so that over time this becomes a complete picture instead of a partial picture.
Yeah. Can people respond and say who they don't think should be on here and you've been snowed?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. Hey, curiosity. Listen, people, I see the comments about my glasses. I can't see anything these days. What's up with CAS Information Services Systems being on here? Isn't that like a big, old company?
It is, but it also has freight bill audit and payment software and services. So
is it any good?
Is it any good?
Is it like updated tech? Or is it like clunky, antiquated?
I haven't looked at it in a decade, so I couldn't.
No, you put it on here though, Ben.
I didn't put it on. They put themselves on. I'm just one guy in a crowdsourced effort. I mean, come on, it's like Craigslist. Craig Newmark didn't sit around.
No, Ben, you can't go to all that effort and say, hey guys, this is Craigslist. This is a great idea that's going to help our industry, but it's Craigslist. So watch out for the creepers and the fishers. What is it called? Fishing?
Catfishing.
Oh, this catfishing. You've been catfished. Because CAS Information Systems is on here. Sorry, CAS. You guys can like email me afterward and be like, Cassandra, we've been improving our product. You're such a bitch. It's okay. Go for it.
Change their name to Cassandra Information System.
And then I'll be like, this should have been a bigger logo, Ben. It should have been in the center. Okay, so let's go to that. Hold on, that thingy. Yes, I wish Andrew Teal was here because he would eat this up. He's going to regret this. But go for us and tell us what this even prettier. I like this thing better than your logo mess. And I hope you don't tell me that this was sourced open source as well.
This was my chart, unlike what you put up a minute ago. This is my chart that I shared at our conference in January. So, Cassandra, as you know, we have the opportunity to host close to 300 of the top CEOs and leaders in logistics and supply chain for 15 years, up until this past January, always in person in Palm Beach at the Breakers. And this year, unfortunately, had to go virtual, but hopefully we'll be back in person next January. And one of the things that people ask me is, what's happening in the industry? Who's making money? Where's value migrating? And what does it mean? So what I attempted to do in one chart was address that question. So this basically is a map of the publicly listed companies throughout the world of supply chain. So whether that's truck brokerage, freight forwarding, warehousing, parcel, software, or other areas, you name it. And what we did was we categorized each of them along the x-axis. On the y-axis, we showed what their stock market performance was last year. And the size of the bubble shows you the size of the company and market value. So what's interesting is the biggest shift in value last year was to parcel and LTL. So LTL,
no big surprise there. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, you know this. They crushed it because the shift to e-commerce purchases and then last mile delivery and work from home. And so that was great for the FedEx, UPS, and DHL trio, also great for YRC and the other LTL guys. So, but if you think about it, look at the size of the bubbles in yellow. FedEx, UPS, and DHL gained $110 billion in market value, right? They grew 40%. That's huge. Right now, I'm an investor in some software companies that I think are fantastic. I mean, Brinng in last mile just became a unicorn last month. But Bring's $1 billion company. So Bring could triple, and all it's adding is, 600, 700 million of value. These guys added 110 billion. So it just gives you a sense of the scope here. It's huge.
I'm looking at this, and what's the little purple dots next to UPS, DHL, and FedEx?
The purple dots are logistics software. So Absolute Software, PFS Web, WiseTech, and a handful of others. And so the publicly traded companies in supply chain software did great. By the way, the privately traded ones, lots of fantastic companies that have achieved tremendous growth. You wouldn't see them on this page because they're private. We at Cambridge have had the fortune of investing in several that we're really excited about. Bring's one in last mile, reverse logics and returns management, green screens and AI to automate truck brokerage with a focus in particular on predictive pricing for truck brokers. Lifted in Latin American logistics tech, Delivery Circle and last mile US services. So lots of great companies, most of whom also accomplishing high growth. And that's illustrative of what you see in purple there. A lot of growth in software.
I love this. Do you get frustrated sometimes when, oh, thank you, Zeke. Do you get frustrated sometimes with private company valuation? Because sometimes as an outsider, I'm not in your world, you're the expert. It feels like a bunch of people sitting around the table just when it's private, private company, and they're like, this company over here is valued at blah, 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 and got all this funding. And I'm like, is it all just this imaginary shit by 10 people who are just making up imaginary numbers, and we have no insight to it? Like, I noticed, like, I was researching Global Trans, and who were they acquired by? Worldwide, I think.
Yes.
And I was so frustrated because it's like private. So I'm like, is this just fictional? Like, what give us some insight when we get frustrated like that.
So a couple of things. First of all, there's a lot of talk about the deal world, but in reality, other than what happened last week with Uber Freight Transplace, most of the deal activity has been in the form of high-profile capital raises, right? In other words, on the tech side, or at least I'm referring to logistics tech companies, a lot of them have become unicorns in the last year. Companies like a ShipBob in e-commerce fulfillment, or a Convoy a couple of years ago, or Flexport a couple of years ago, or kind of a host of others. Again, our guys at Brinng, Project 44, Four Kites. But fundamentally, all that means is somebody's writing a check and saying, I'm willing to invest at a high price. Does it mean they're worth that? No. Are people selling the company at that price? No. So sometimes a headline, I'm not saying this is the case for any of the companies that I've mentioned, but sometimes you could have a headline with a big price, but then behind the scenes, there's a structure. Actually, I won't name names, but one of the companies that we've talked about in the last 2 minutes raised capital at what seemed to be a high price, but in reality, the investor did a structured deal where they were going to get their money back plus a high rate of return before anything else would happen. So in other words, if I said, Cassandra, I'm going to invest in Mad Gains, and I'm going to value your company at $1 billion, and I'm going to invest $10 million. However, I've got a 20% rate of return that I get before anybody else sees any returns. Ooh. Guess what? If the company sells 3 years later for $15 million, I'm going to get all the proceeds, even though on paper this was $1 billion business. In reality, it was a $10 million business. So
yes,
you can play games with this.
Yeah, I see that. That's cool. You're in a cool world. You brought up Uber and Transplace, which took. I'm not going to say any conclusions. I'm going to let the expert go at it. What did you think when you saw it happen, or when you heard about it? What were some of your thoughts, and were you surprised?
So a couple of things. First of all, was I surprised? Yeah, but maybe for reasons that might be different from what you'd expect. I was not surprised that Uber Freight bought a freight management and tech-enabled logistics company. I was a little bit surprised that they made that particular choice, but I'll come back to that. What I noticed here was, first of all, the history of this is, I think, interesting. I remember when Transplace got started, 6 trucking companies all had logistics arms. This was 21 years ago. They merged their logistics businesses together, put a .com at the end of the name, and then thought maybe they could take it public at a high price. And, that was kind of creative on their part, but it didn't work. Public markets didn't say, yes, you get to go public just because there's a .com at the end of it, and you don't get a crazy multiple just because there's .com at the end of it. But it was really the beginning of, sadly, it was the beginning of kind of a shift from the world of trucking to the world of technology. And so over that 21-year time frame, Transplace evolved from really 6 logistics divisions of trucking companies that competed with each other, and in many cases hated each other, to an integrated, successful, tech-enabled freight management company. And they did a great job. Did a terrific job. It was noteworthy to me that Uber Freight made this move for a couple of reasons. One, it gave them a business that's making money. Uber Freight has a lot of promise, but not a profitable company. So
Right.
Buying Transplace gave them profit. It gave them tremendous data. If you think about it, one of the things that Transplace has to offer isn't just freight. It's also the data and the insight, because they have so much volume that flows through them. So really, Uber now knows what's being spent by all these Fortune 500 companies, all these different trade lanes. What are they going to do with that data? Could they use it to come up with better pricing? Could they use it to come up with a different capacity model? Yeah, there are all kinds of things that they could do with that. So I think number one, they get better unit economics because Transplace makes money. Number two, they get fantastic data. Number three, they get scale. I mean, so this is adding, 120, 30 million plus of EBITDA. That's meaningful, possibly more depending on whether you look at last year or this year or run rates or play games with ad backs or all kinds of, numbers games that folks play. But they're getting that, they're getting data, and they're also getting a great team. They're getting a team that really understands the freight.
Knows freight. Mm-hmm.
So I think they get those 3 things. And then there's one more. Uber Freight fundamentally is a transactional business, but Transplace has contracts.
Good
so
point.
This is one of those areas where I wrote about convergence in that post that you put up. There's convergence between technology and services. There's convergence between transactional freight and contractual freight. And there's convergence between people, fundamentally tech people and freight people. So all that came together.
Gregory says one of the few moves with Uber who I just lost it, a standalone, they know it would not survive. I think a lot of people in the comments are probably saying what all of us are thinking. Hopefully carriers will get better support from Uber whenever there's a problem with a shipment. Uber Convoy and just about any other digital broker performs poorly in this area. Good point, Jonathan. Jonathan also made a point too that he was disappointed that Transplace was bought out by Uber. And I have to say I was with him a little bit on that. Just because I have friends over at Transplace and I've always loved that company. I'm not saying, oh, it's horrible, they're gonna go, Uber's nothing bad about Uber. I'm just always like, change, that sucks. When something like this happens with regards to, let's see, Uber's a public company, Transplace is private, right?
That's right.
Is there the first thing that came into I'll back up. The first thing that popped into my mind was this could be an utter shit show to be able to merge these two companies and get everything synchronized, the technology, the completely different cultures. I'm going to put technology in quotations for somebody. But anyhow, is there do investors think the same thing when they look at a deal like this? Like, what's the likelihood of success that they're going to be good when they merge? Or is there just going to be a shit show for a little while but you guys will figure it out and it'll be good?
Well, I think it depends on, first of all, who's doing the buying, and second of all, what their experience is with successful integration. Because plenty of mergers fail, but plenty of them succeed. And if you take an example, I mean, one of my first investments was 2011 with Brad Jacobs in Express One, which became XPO. Brad Jacobs has done a fantastic job of buying and integrating. Mm-hmm. And so if the question is, is XPO buying a company? Are they going to do a good job? My answer is different than if it's some other random company. And the reason XPO was so successful was partly because they did a great job of being disciplined and picking things that fit their strategy, partly because they did a very good job of keeping the key people, and then partly they had a phased integration plan where you start by integrating financial systems and marketing, and you disrupt the operations last. And if you look at the blueprint that Brad's followed, he's been extremely successful building what was Express One in the beginning, now a $20 billion giant. It comes down to being great at this very topic that you addressed. So will Uber do a great job of integrating Transplace? I don't know. Too soon to tell. They don't have a history of doing it. That doesn't mean that they'll fail. It just means that it's an unknown. By the way, if you have friends at Transplace and they sold, hopefully they have stock options, in which case they just made a lot.
Yeah, good for them. I hope they made lots of monies. You probably signed a non-compete too, so that sucks for y'all. So be careful with that. Side note, you may not have. I'm just speculating. One more. God, I love talking to you. We're going to go a little bit over on time just because I want to jam in one thing that was weird to me that you illuminated. I follow you on LinkedIn because I like your posts, and I think you keep me cool. I like on my thumb on the pulse, except for the stupid map. We got to do something about that map. Zengistics, and don't say it's not your map. Your name was on it. You promoted it. You put your brand on it. It's your map. CAS Information Systems. Zengistics and Trimac. You were excited about that, and I was like, meh.
Is there
what are you excited about?
Let me tell you why. Okay, so look, I think a couple things. First of all, Trimac is a traditional trucking company. So you might ask, why the hell, and as you can see, look at their trucks. I mean, carrying, fuel.
Look at bulk providers. That's
right.
Hard to run that freight.
So Zengistics, on the other hand, is a tech-enabled brokerage business. Why would they buy it? Well, it illustrates a couple of things. One, it illustrates the convergence between asset-based and asset-light companies. So Trimac is saying, I want to grow on the asset-light side.
Or no asset side.
Or the no asset side, because then I don't have to spend money on trucks to grow, and I can meet customer need without having this massive capital expenditure. Two, they're saying, hey, I want to grow on the technology side because I can have something differentiated. Maybe I can integrate with my customers. Maybe that makes my relationship stickier, and maybe they're more likely to stay with me. I mean, the challenge with trucking, I say this as someone that grew up with exposure to truck, family truck leasing business, two big challenges. One, you got to spend a lot of money on capital expenditures. Oftentimes, 100% of your profit goes back into the trucks. And then two, you don't always have real differentiation, especially truck leasing's different. But if you're over the road trucking, guess what? You get a customer today that might go across the street to somebody else tomorrow. But if you've got technology and you're integrated with the customer and it's harder for them to leave you, so much more valuable, right? So there's a reason why some of the smartest trucking I'll give you an example. My friend Sid Brown at NFI. When I first met NFI,
I like NFI.
They're great. 21 years ago, it was mainly a truck line, $100 million, $120 million truck line. Today, that's the smallest part of the business, right? I mean, truck brokerage, about $500 million, major warehousing, real estate, all these other areas, okay? Sid Brown's a smart guy. He figured out that if he could grow in these other areas with less capital intensity, more technology, more integration with the customer, more stickiness, he was going to build a better business. And by the way, he's private, okay? He's not doing it so the stock market gives him a crazy price. He's doing it because he knows it makes more money, short-term and long-term. And so I think what Trimac is doing is really an illustration of all those points.
But does Zengistics, listen, Trimac goes to whomever, somebody like you, and they're like, hey, we need to get into the logistics industry, find us something to buy. Smart, right? The Zengistics part, maybe I don't know enough about their business, but do they specialize in bulk? Are they like a big bulk broker?
No.
So
I think Trimac is going to expand into other areas of logistics beyond bulk. I think this is really a strategic step towards that expansion.
And then does Zengistics have their own technology?
Yes, they do. Zengistics is a digital freight broker. To go back to one of the topics you've been hammering me on since the beginning.
which is interesting. Okay, I didn't know they had their own technology. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, one more thing, and then we'll let you go because we're over on time. But I think you're my new favorite guest. I just could talk to you for hours. You probably think the opposite of me because all I've been doing is just beating up this poor map that people spent a lot of time with, and they were so excited about, and then Cassandra goes and is a little brat about. Israel.
Yes.
You just got back from Israel. Could you tell us about it? Open our minds to what's going on outside of the United States.
Yes. So much like your comment about the map, there is a world outside of the United States, and we've all been in our COVID holes for all this time, but it's time to get out. So we have a portfolio company in Israel, Brinng, and Brinng is software for managing the last mile. I first invested in that company 5 years ago, put in $1 million when it was an early stage startup. We've invested $40 million since then. Company's done a fantastic job. Guy Block, the CEO, building a great business, just became a unicorn, raised $100 million from Insight at $1 billion valuation. And I hadn't been there in a long time. And so I was overdue to go. So I thought, great, I'll get on a plane and fly over. Well, not nearly as easy as I thought. Thanks to COVID, there are a whole string of things you've got to get through. You need a business entry visa. You got to go to the embassy or consul.
Oh my goodness.
Test, post-flight test. Then you got to take a blood test when you're there to show you've got antibodies. So I hope I don't offend. I'm sure the guy that drew my blood is not listening to this show, but
probably not. Poor guy.
Arcady, if you're listening, you missed my vein and it wasn't cool. But Arcady was mad because I asked him to wash his hands, and apparently he didn't want to wash his hands before putting a needle in my arm. So, but in any event, I got through it all, got out of quarantine, and I got to go meet not only with Brinng, but with tons of other great companies. Israel has become one of the world's leading hubs for our industry. There's more great transportation technology there than almost anywhere else. So if you look at it in terms of lots of metrics, number of companies, number of startups, number of unicorns. Tel Aviv is second only to Silicon Valley in terms of the number of unicorns that's produced. It's amazing. Yeah.
Do they understand our industry?
You know what? Historically, the answer was there was a model in Israel where you'd have brilliant engineers that would come up with great ideas, and they'd start the companies there, and then they'd come to the U.S. because that's how you commercialize. That's what Brinng did. That's what lots of companies did. Freightos. Dozens of companies, followed that path. So did the guy who started Brinng understand freight better than you do? No. He was a smart guy. There are two of them, two brilliant co-founders, Lior and Renan, but they were brilliant technology entrepreneurs, not lifelong freight guys. Okay. But they knew enough to start the business. They knew enough to get some great early adopters like a FedEx, a Coca-Cola, and others. And they knew enough to come to the U.S. We actually brought them to our annual conference, walked them around, introduced them to some terrific people at places like YRC, XPO, Purelator, and others. Many of them ended up becoming customers or partners, and things took off. So did they know freight in the beginning? No, but I think they know it really well now. And the same is true for a lot of these other guys. So, listen, I got to say, I've been in the world of freight all my life. I grew up, with family business and truck leasing, and, built an advisory business before investing in and also founding multiple companies in the space. But you know what? Sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be, right? So somebody part in another industry that has a partner that knows freight, oftentimes that's a great formula. And I think that formula has worked for a lot of the companies that have come out of Israel. Bring's one great example out of, I would say, dozens like that.
That is so exciting and interesting. Okay, you have lived up to your title of the smartest man in freight. And we're not going to say near freight anymore. He's in freight, people, for those of you who gave me a hard time about saying in. This has been so interesting, and I can tell that everyone has really learned a lot just by the comments. And I hope you'll consider coming back. And
be glad
thank
to.
you.
But I want
for
you to
giving
get
us
some shit to my partners on that slide that you don't like.
To do what? Get some shit. Oh yeah. I totally will. Because look, JOC.com, y'all know better, JOC. Come on now, put some effort into this. Poor soul. You know, it was left. This project was left to some poor soul, and they stayed up until 2 a.m. And they were like, I hate everybody. Let me just squeeze this one more logo on here because Matt Silver said he wanted to be on here too. Yeah. And here we go. So now I'm just kidding. I like the idea. You are a very good sport, letting me give you shit about everything and also taking the time to teach us because we just love that. We eat it up. Thank you to our sponsors, OTR Capital, OTR people, not OTF, like Cassandra always messes up. And then my favorite, which is Lean Solutions Group. Thank you very much. And we will see you guys next Friday. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Stay out of trouble, people.